Hello there. Welcome to the visual tour of the Nomad, otherwise known as the Supernote A6X2, the 7.8-inch e-note taker just released by Supernote. This video is basically going to be a visual tour of the user interface, the different aspects of the note-taking and system design, all of that. There's a lot of stuff we're going to go over. I'm not going to go over everything, but I'm going to go over a vast majority of the features and functions of the Nomad Supernote, which actually is very similar to the previous iterations of the Supernote. The software aspect has very minor changes, and in most cases is exactly the same as, say, the A5X or the A6X, which has been out on the market for a number of years now. So this is really a good visual tour of all Supernote devices, but we'll be using the Nomad as our model, if you will, to go through that process. So with a lot of material, this is a fairly long video, and for that purpose, I created a lot of chapters so you can move ahead to the areas that interest you, or you can use this video as a reference in the future and go back if there's a particular area that's of interest to you. I basically kind of walk through the device, but every once in a while where my experience kind of has a tip that I can offer, I'll go ahead and add that in. There's not a lot of that, but there's little bits of that sprinkled here and there. So anyway, I just hope that you enjoy the video overall. One last thing I want to say before we get right into it, which is in my initial impressions video, I was really unhappy with the grip of the Freewrite 2 screen. And I'm still, kind of getting used to it. And, I won't be doing a review for another week or so. So I've had plenty of time to actually work with the device and have an opinion. But it has been getting better. I just will point that out. I'm feeling less of that grip as I'm writing. And I don't know, there was a system update that might have fed into that. It might be that the screen initially starts with grip and that quickly wears off. I'm not sure what the deal is, but I did want to provide a little mini update. So that aspect seems to be getting a bit better. There's a couple of other aspects I'm not as sure about, but again, I'm going to save all those thoughts for the review and after I've had a chance to make sure I've tested things and it's not user error, some of the issues that I might be seeing. But overall, I do feel pretty good about the Nomad as a device, and as everyone probably knows at this point, I'm a huge Supernote fan. It's my daily driver at work, the A5X that is. So it would be pretty amazing if the Nomad turned out to be something that I didn't like. But there might be aspects, so we'll see, and that's about a week down the line. In the meantime, let's go ahead and take a tour of the device, and then I'll close with some final comments. Okay, let's take a look at the core functionality of the Supernote, which is regarding note-taking. But just before we do that, I'm going to demonstrate how the Folio basically has an auto turn-on when you open the cover. So initially you're going to see the screensaver, and then it will open up into the device itself, like so. All right, now we're already in a note that I'll walk us through. But before we start going through the menu options, if we wanted to just create a note, we would go ahead and swipe down on the bar here, and then just click this button to create a new note. That allows us to name it, and then the naming convention by default is the date and the time that the note's created. But if you just click on this section, and you can get a little X button there, you can clear it out, and you can type whatever you want in there. In addition to that, you have an option of either setting up what's called a standard or a real-time recognition note. Real-time recognition, and it says it right here, basically allows for searching and the handwriting. So that's a benefit, but it comes at the cost of increased power consumption. So if you're looking to do a lot of searching on handwriting, then you may just want to select this. If you're not as concerned, then you would go with standard just to save a little bit of battery power. And then you have some templates here. These are not all the templates that are available. We'll show a list of that in a second. But this is basically what you go through in creating a note. If I had put a title in here, then I would have all the elements I need. I would click create, and then I would go right into the note. But let's go ahead and cancel that out and go into our note here. And we're just going to start off, I'm going to skip over these two items for now, which we'll start off going down the option list. Before I do though, what you're seeing on the screen can be customized. So for example, this item down below, which has the page, the name of the file and the page numbers and a navigation through the pages, you can get rid of that by double tapping. In addition to that, we'll see an option later that allows you to take this feature and moves it on top. So you can either have it here or you can have it here. There's much more functionality as it relates to the menu bar. First off, if we go through the options in the menu, you can see that you can by default put it on top, on bottom, to the left, or to the right. And currently we have the left selected. But you don't have to use this menu in order to move it. If I just go ahead and hold it down with one finger, I can now drag it to whichever side I want, like so. I can also hold it down and move it up and create a floating bar. And further, clicking on this button here, I can go ahead, whoops, let's click on that, go ahead and shrink it so that's a very minimalist floating bar. And there's actually two options for this. We'll see that later. This option is a pen and an eraser, but you can also have the pen and lasso, and you have undo and redo listed as well. So a lot of functionality that you can do with this bar. We'll go ahead and put it back over here so we can see most of the features. Finally, there is this button down here to minimize. And it can look like that. You can also use two fingers to tap, and it returns it. There's an option of whether you want to keep this little 4-arrow symbol when it's minimized or not. I selected it off so that when you click on that, you now have your entire canvas to work with. One thing to note about that, however, is that when you add either the bottom or the sidebar or what have you, it won't resize the image. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to just right here. Like so. Bring back the bar. Okay, and you can't see it anymore because what I just wrote is now hidden underneath the bar. So just that's just how it works. Now let's start focusing on what you can select. And I think this UI is a little bit intimidating at first, linear rather, in how it's laid out. And I think it becomes pretty intuitive fairly quickly. So just taking it from the top, we have 3 presets for pen styles. And you'll also notice that there is this triangle in the lower right corner, and that indicates that if you press on that button again, you have more options. So here are examples of the 3 pens, and with each pen there are options you can pick from. For example, right now we have the needlepoint pen, and then depending on what option you pick would indicate like the thickness of the line. You can also change these presets. So right now this is defaulting to 1. I can go ahead and make that a 0.9. Okay, so let's go back to 0.7. Now if I go back to the 0.9, it holds that. So these are actually user defined. And then you can finally determine whether you want it to be black, a couple shades of gray, or even white. There's also a ink pen with slightly different options. These are set, you can't customize it, so it's either 0.5, 0.7, or 1.0, but you do have the same color choices. And then with the marker, you just have the 4 color options. And the way that looks is like so. So this is the needlepoint pen at 0.5 thickness. Here's the ink pen at 0.5 thickness, and then the marker, and here are displayed the different options with the marker in terms of the colors. And let me show the white real quickly. So let's make sure that I'm going to click this once, click it again. Okay, so there's the marker. I'm set on white. And white will basically be almost like a white out, for those that remember that, where it will basically cover whatever is underneath. So those are the pen options. It's not extensive relative to other manufacturers. Other folks will have, 5 or maybe even more pen options. But I think you'll find it's pretty easy to find a pen option you like, and then that generally becomes your default option. Now, in addition to the pens, there's also different eraser types. So this is a stroke eraser, and you can select how thick the eraser is. So we're on the thinnest right now, so I'll just go ahead and eliminate it like so. This is an area eraser. So for example, if I created something like this, and I clicked on the area eraser and I just circled one end of it, it will eliminate the strokes. Okay. And then the last option is here, where if you click on this, you can actually erase everything at once. So that brings us then to the lasso, and the lasso function is pretty powerful. So let's go ahead and see that in action. I'm going to go ahead and go to another page here. I'm going to click on the lasso. You'll notice there's a little plus in there. That means it's got something saved already. So I'm going to click on that again and clear it out like so. And the plus in the middle of that is gone. But the lasso is activated. Now I'm going to go ahead and circle with this text that says header example. We'll just circle it like so. And there's a number of options. I can copy, and then it will allow me to paste anywhere I want, but it'll keep me on this page. I can copy where it will then take me to a section that shows all the pages in the file, and then I can pick where I want to paste it. I'll just do that as an example. I'm going to click on that, and see there's all the pages in this notebook, so I can just click on a page, and then just tap wherever I want to paste it, like so. Oops, that's a little off to the side. No worries. If I use my stylus and hold it down, I can just drag this anywhere I want, like so. And then there's a cut function, which obviously would get rid of the source text, and then I would paste it, wherever I wanted. So if we go back to where we were before, oh, let me get out of this. Okay. There we go. See, the header example still remained because we didn't use the cut function. We used the paste function. Let's go ahead and clear out that clipboard. All right, we're going to go ahead and circle this again because there were other options. So there's one option that has the letter H, and this is for a header. So we're going to go ahead and select that. And we have 4 options to choose from underneath that header option. And all this is indicating is how this header will be formatted. They'll all behave the same way. Let's go ahead and just pick this last one. Okay. Now, what does that do? Well, if we go back up here to this icon, the second one from the top, and we'll click on that, it's kind of a table of contents for the notebook. And you have the ability to look at headings, and we'll get to keywords, and we'll get to stars in a second. But what we just lassoed and created a header is now listed on this. So if I go ahead and click on that, it will take me to this location. Let's go ahead and add a second header. We'll create this as a header. We'll pick a different format just for fun. Let's go back here. And now we see we've got 2 headers in the file. And we can also change the look of this, where they're now side by side as opposed from top down. I prefer this view, so we'll go back to that. So anytime you go into a notebook, when you create headers, they're basically links to different parts of the notebook, and you just click on it and it takes you right there. So very powerful. All right, there's also keywords. So let's go ahead and circle this. And there's this letter K, we're gonna select that. It will now this is a file again that we used for handwriting recognition, and this was their attempt at doing that. So the handwriting's a little bit hit and miss, but let's say that I don't want to use this anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this predefined one. So this is something I'd created before called KE. Actually, instead of doing that, why don't we go ahead and type just key W. Okay, and then we'll add that in. Okay, so now you can see there's this link to it, and I can also use that X to get rid of it. But let's go ahead and get out of this. And we're going to go ahead and go to the next page. I'm going to lasso this, and I'm also going to make this a keyword. And we're going to use that same tag. Okay, And then we'll go ahead. And actually we've done it, so we're good. We'll back out. Now if I go into this table of contents, I go to keywords, you'll see that key W appears on both pages. Now, I don't have to always associate a keyword with particular text. It can literally be associated with a particular page. We'll come to that later, but just be aware of that for now. You can also sort this by page or keyword, but because we have so few, the sorting doesn't really matter. The final thing is stars. And so you'll notice that in the star example, I've already written out this star. So if I go ahead and click on stars, there it is. So the star is marking the page as a whole, and I can click on the page and go into it. Now here's how stars work, and they're pretty neat. So if I move on to this page, I want to create a star, I'm literally going to draw the star, and then it will tell me graphically that it recognizes it as a star. So let's take a look at that. Oops, let's go back to our pen. There we go. Oh, don't want that. There we go. Okay, we'll do 0.5. Perfect. Okay, excellent. Let's go ahead and create a star. See? So after I created the star, it converts to this symbol, and that's critical because that tells me that the system understands it's a star. And if I go back into this table of contents button, I go over to stars, you can see that both pages that have stars are now indicated. Now, one of the interesting things, particularly with keywords and stars, is that they're searchable not only within the notebook, as we see here, but they're also searchable outside of notebooks. So if I drag the screen down and I have the little search icon there, we'll click on that. I have a number of things I can search for. You can select what file type, but we're going to leave that alone. But if I click on this drop-down bar over here, you'll notice that I can search not only on the file names, but also again on keywords and stars. And if your notebook has handwriting recognition, it can search on that as well. Headers, however, are only searchable within the particular notebook. Lastly, you do have the ability to create a calendar entry, and you have the ability to create links. We'll get to the calendar later when we look at the applications that are available on the Supernote, but let's go ahead and click on the link and see what's available. So the first thing they allow you to do is you can kind of create the style, and this is what it's going to look like once you create your link. So here's one with a box. I kind of like that. We'll select that. And the options is either another page in the file, a different file, either recent or other, or a web page. Those are all options available. We'll do another page in this file. So here it's displaying all the pages. I guess we'll just have it linked to the first page. And then we'll click OK. All right. So now we have this link. If I click on it, see, it takes me to the beginning. So that's all the functions that are available with the Lasso. You can copy to another page, you can cut, add headers, keynotes, a calendar, and links. So a lot of great functionality there. And the Lasso is probably the most complicated of the items on this menu bar. Now, as we keep going down the line, there's undo and redo, and that is basically undoing or redoing your strokes. So we'll go ahead for an example and create some strokes here. And let's say I want to undo that. I'll click on that and see it got rid of the last stroke. If I do it again, it gets rid of that stroke. If I want to redo, it'll bring the stroke back, etc. You can also use the slide bar. So if we scroll up, it undoes. And scroll down, it redoes, if that's a word. So you can either use the scroll bar or you can use these arrow icons. Either way. Here we have templates. So earlier when we were creating a notebook, we had an option of templates and there was a brief option of the most recently used. We could have seen more, and these are all the notebooks that are available. And finally, like so. And you can just change the templates. You can change templates on that particular page, or you can change templates for the entire notebook. That's up to you. This icon allows you a quick navigation through a notebook. So if you click on that, you see all the pages are available. If there were more than 9, then there would be more pages that you could go to. And you can just click on a page and it quickly takes you to that place. This icon, which is only available if your notebook has handwriting recognition, will go through your notebook and then create text based on the handwriting it sees in the notebook. And then you have the ability, if you want, to export that. And we're letting it go ahead and run through now. Okay, there we go. We can see that it picked up. Looks like it picked up what was on just that page, right? There's the header example. And as a reminder, we'd put hi there on the side, and the handwriting recognition picked that up. Here it picked up some of the text we had on the 3rd page, and so on. Okay, here's the search functionality. And this is within the notebook. And this is looking through handwritten text. Finally, this right here, at least on the screen, is the gesture control. So here you can select it where one finger can be used. And this is to navigate. 2 fingers, or you don't allow for touch navigation. So for example, I have it on 2. So if I want to swap pages, I just use my 2 fingers accordingly. There's additional features. We're not done yet. So here, the note name is demo. I can simply rename it here. Here's an option to set the cover. I'll click on that. There's a few options there. You can either pick any one of these pages to be the cover, or you can select an image. Let's go ahead and do that. So I happen to have an image that I put on the device. We'll click on that, and then we'll apply. So what did that do for us? Well, I'm going to go ahead and click on this top button up here. And this is basically looking at all my notes. You can see this is the note folder, and these are all the notes that I have in there. And here's the one that we just came out of, and so that image is now here in the cover. So it's a way of visually being able to find a particular notebook. There are other ways you can list these files. You just click on this icon here. You have more traditional list where you can't see the cover. And then here's kind of an in-between. It's a list, but it does have the covers as well. And then of course back to where we were, which shows the covers fairly distinctly. You'll notice there's these little stars at the bottom, and this is basically a way of indicating favorites. And then if you only wanted to see favorites, we have one selected here, we would click on this star, and that's all that we would see. We'll go ahead and back out of that, and go back into the file, back into the menu. All right, here's where you can insert a link. This is a little different than what we did earlier, where we had a lasso tool where we selected some text. Here we actually define the text, so we'll just call this links with a Z, just to be hip. We'll pick this as a slightly different format, but we're still going to look within the file. We'll just point to the last page, click OK, and there is our link. We can drag this anywhere we'd like. All right, and click outside of it, and now we have an active link. So if I click on this, it takes me to the last page as we'd indicated. All right, we have the ability to add a keyword. Again, you can do that with a lasso, but the difference here is the keyword will apply to the page, not the text that's been selected. So if I go ahead and select this, and we have a couple defined keywords, we'll click tag here. So the tag is now associated with page 5. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we're on page 5, and you'll notice that nowhere on the screen is there any sign of that keyword. But if we click on the table of contents, and we go to keywords, see page 5 is there, and we can click on it. We can also get rid of keywords, by the way, by clicking on this little X. That would eliminate them. Let's go ahead and select that. And it takes us here to page 5. So a couple ways to do both links and keywords. All right. Then all of these are pretty much straightforward. These are all inserting pages before, after, deleting. You can cut or copy and then paste pages. So this is just page management, and it's pretty straightforward. You have the ability to export, and what export generally does is it creates a file that gets saved on the device itself. Although, if we click on it, there is an option for a QR code. So you could scan and then have a device basically download that file. Now, there's 4 formats in which you can export. You can do PNG, which would create a file for every page, or you can do PDF, text, or doc, which will create a file for whatever pages are selected. So if I choose to select all, I do PDF, then it'll export all 5 pages into one document. But PNG is the only one that will have to create separate files for each image. And again, the export will be saved onto this device. Okay, this is one of my favorites, which is quick access. And there's 2 options. So you can either do a quick access to the page, or you can do a quick access to the note. So what's the difference? Well, if I did it to the page, then my shortcut will always point to this particular page. Let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to add this in. Now, if I go to my shortcut menu, you'll notice under quick access, it says the note file and the number 5. So that's telling me if I click on this, I'm always going to go to the 5th page of that note. So for example, let's go ahead and move this over to page 4. If I swipe down and click on this, it'll go to page 5. Alternately, we can do it for the note. And what the note will do is it will go to whatever page I leave it at. It's pretty cool. And you can remove those at any time accordingly. And then we'll have to go to page 5 to get rid of that page. So you could have multiple pages in a notebook in your quick file. Finally, and we're almost done, if we click on Preferences, you have the option of handwriting anti-aliasing. And my understanding, and I'm actually not an expert on this, but my understanding is that when you export files, this will impact what the lines look like. And anti-aliasing is supposed to smooth out jagged edges that might otherwise appear. Star mark recognition is by default set to on, but you could turn that off. As I noted earlier, we can either put the page numbers on top or bottom. And as I also noted earlier, you can select what the floating, skinny, or shortened toolbar includes here as well. So those are some preferences that you have available. And then finally, we have gesture settings. And so, for example, I've already talked about the double tap. That's what this function is. And we mentioned that you could have the button show, and that's what this is basically talking about. So let's go back. Okay, so now that little icon remains, that option is there under gesture settings. If you want the page number bar, you can turn it on or off here. And then return to page before jumping is basically swiping up like this on the top half of the screen. So that is all of the options in the note-taking app. The last thing I'll point to is this icon in the upper left corner, which allows you then to switch between files. And you can also start a new note, start a Word document, or even create a folder from this menu as well. Or if you came here by mistake, you can just return by clicking on that. Okay, so let's look at the drop-down system icon, and we're going to just take our finger and swipe down from the top, and there it appears. And here you have a number of toggles that you can engage in. The first one, Wi-Fi, and actually Bluetooth as well, you can select this to either activate or deactivate it. So we see here that Wi-Fi is on, but Bluetooth is off. This is nice because if you turn these things off, you're going to save battery power. I almost always keep Wi-Fi off unless I'm powering up my device, and in doing so, also checking to see if there's any updates or if I want to back up files. Otherwise, I don't need Wi-Fi, and that saves me a little bit of battery time. So here's where those toggles are. This toggle, which is on currently, allows you to open up a web browser and look at the files on the device, and you can download files from there as well. So that's kind of a nice way of being able to extract files from this device to another computer using that icon there. This is a screen share icon that also works through your web browser. So you click on this, you type in the URL that it gives you, and then whatever you're doing on the screen, including the navigation items, all appear displayed on whatever the browser is you're using. I tend to find that that URL that this icon creates is stable. So I've actually bookmarked it in my web browser when I want to do the screen sharing. So I activate this and click on my favorite on my browser, and then I connect that way. So it's pretty convenient. This is the icon that's used for the G sensor. It's currently activated, meaning that if I were to turn the device, like so, it moves into landscape mode. And then if I'll go ahead and turn that back, like so. Now, regardless of what mode I'm in, if I go back to this icon and deselect it, like so, see, then the G sensor will not work and the orientation will stay in place, whether you're portrait or landscape. This is your sync button, and this will work depending on what other services that you've decided to use, and we'll get to that through the settings screen. But clicking on that will activate the sync. This is a screenshot button, so this will take an automatic picture of whatever's on the screen, and it saves it in a particular folder. Then we have the search icon, and the search icon we've seen before, and here we can search on all these different file types. And in addition to that, we can search within notes for keywords, stars, even handwriting, depending on whether we've allowed the notebook to allow for handwriting or not. All right. And then the last thing is the actual system settings for the device. So let's take a look at that. Now, if you went ahead and set up an account with Supernote, then this is where you would do it and where you would log in. I don't have an account, so I didn't set one up, so this is what you'll see when you first use the device. There's other options to backing up your files, but if you want to use Supernote's cloud services, you would have to create an account here. Alternately, you could use either Dropbox or Google Drive, and that's actually what I do. I use Google Drive to back up my files. Just be aware that when you are backing up your files, it's going to back them up in the exact format that they exist on the device. So for example, a note file is a proprietary file format for this device. So it will back up the .note file onto my Google Drive. And it's a good backup, but I can't view the file unless it's viewed on a Supernote device. So just something to be aware of. Wi-Fi is pretty self-explanatory. My device just gives some information about your device, but there's also a toggle there for Bluetooth and direct transfer if you're moving files between the Supernote and the partner app, which again would require a Supernote account. There's a number of toggles here under display and input, including the font size, the date and time, the language, the keyboard, which also ties to the language. There's different languages available. Let's take a look at that. So here mine is defaulted English, but there are a number of others available, including these as well. Let's go back. Go back again. Okay. Here we have the we can calibrate the stylus. So if it doesn't seem to be drawing right. There's some sort of disconnect, and you might try the calibration process to reconnect how the stylus is working. And then if you're using a Lamy, Lamy has a side button. I actually have a Lamy device here. So there's a little button right here on the side. By default, it's usually an eraser, but here in the menu, you can actually convert that to a lasso if you'd like, as opposed to the eraser. So that option is available. Under gestures, this is where you can select left or right-handed. This was selected in the startup process, but if you change your mind or give this to someone who's the opposite of you, this is where they would make that change. Under eraser and lasso preferences, you can either select between region or lasso, and this is basically how the sidebar works here on the left. So right now I have it configured where if I put my 2 fingers here in the bar, it will be a region eraser. But I could select it to be a lasso instead. And then the same thing on the screen. You still have the ability to do 2 finger on the screen with either a lasso or an eraser, and those are where you can toggle those items. You've got a little gesture guide here that can walk you through what the number of the gestures can do. We're showing some of that, but you can see there's 23 pages. So there's probably going to be more information here that I'm sharing in this video. Here's your security and privacy. You can put a password onto your device, and then you can indicate what server that you're connecting to if you're using the Supernote Cloud server. And that was also selected during the startup process. You can see your battery status rather. And then you can select some toggles. I actually choose not to do auto sleep nor auto power off. And what that allows me to do is anytime I want to start using the device, I open the cover and I get right in. That is going to burn battery over time. Now I haven't done battery tests with the Nomad, but this is exactly what I do with the A6X. And I can tell you the way I use my Supernote, and of course your mileage is going to vary, but I charge it on a Friday night. I manually power it down using the power button. And then coming into Monday, I power it up and I leave it that way until the end of the week on Friday. I usually burn about 30% battery doing that. So I don't find that these toggles are necessary in my use case, but if you're taking a lot more notes than I'm taking, then that's going to draw the battery down, and these things, it might make more sense. There's an app store. There's not much in it though. There's only 2 apps. There is this Paint app, and then there's the Kindle app. The Paint app is fairly new. I haven't tried it yet, so I'm hoping to try that before I do my final review. These are whatever apps you've actually downloaded. I've only downloaded one of the 2. Here's another place where you can customize the sidebar. This is actually referring to the swipe down bar. So if I swipe this, you'll notice that these options are what's included down here. If I'm not using these features, I can get rid of those here under apps and sidebar menu items. And then this is where you can basically download the Supernote app, whether you have iOS or an Android device. Feedback is where you can actually send a message directly to the folks at Supernote. So if you have some sort of bug or some sort of issue or a feature you'd like to see, then you can do that here by either writing out your note or using a keyboard to type it out. And you can do up to 4 attachments. And finally, last but not least, here's a QR code to their support page. Okay, let's take a look at some of the apps that are available on the Supernote, and you can access them using the slider here on the right. Just before we do that though, if you ever wanted to refresh the screen, you just swipe up and it will refresh. But if you swipe down, then you get this menu. Now, recent files is a nice little option. If you click on this, it will list, I can't remember the exact number, but roughly your last 10 recent files, and then you can click on them to jump into those files. You can also create a new note or open your last open note or document. And as we showed in the demonstration of the note-taking app, if you create any quick links to notes, those will be listed here. Here you can look at your file structure. by clicking on Files. So these are all the folders that are on the root drive of the Supernote. Documents is generally where you'll put PDFs and other documents. Exporting, this is where files that you export go. They end up in this folder. My Style is where you can actually put in custom templates. Those templates could be PNG files, although those PNG files need to be very specific in their formatting. So if you end up doing that, be sure to look up what those details are so that it'll work. Or in a much easier manner, you can create PDF files and put them in here and use those as templates, and that's a much easier process and one I would recommend. Your notes are in this folder. Any screenshots you take are here, and then finally, if you are linked to your email client, then this is the inbox for that. So that's your file structure there. Here's the digest button, and I'll just click on that, and you can see right here. This is a manner in which you can go through these types of documents here and basically indicate sections that you want to be able to reference later outside of those documents. And there's a couple ways in which to do that, but we won't demonstrate that here. Here is the Mail app, and here are the accounts that you could link to the device, and then you can just go through the setup process accordingly. Once you've done that, then when you click on this icon, it'll take you into your inbox. There is an integrated calendar, and you can actually connect this to either Google or Outlook as well. You have a couple other features here. You can change how it looks. This is obviously a month look. You can go to a 7-day look, or you can go to a single day look. If you wanted to add an event to the calendar, you would click on this plus button here to do that. Any notes that you create will automatically be applied to that date. So I've created 2 notes today, and so if I click on that icon, it shows me what those notes are, and I can go ahead and jump right into that. So if you had created a note and you have a lot of notebooks and you can't remember the name of it, but you remember when you did it, well, then you could go into the calendar, find that date, and then go right in. If we selected an event, we would do that here. And whoops. We'll go ahead and select that. And there it is. So you can see a little dot indicating there's an event, and there is the event, and you can click on it, and then it'll give you any details if applicable, and you can also delete it like so. So that's the basics of the calendar app. If we scroll down, there's another shortcut to settings. It's the same shortcut as this drop-down bar. Those both go to the same place. And then finally, here I have my Kindle app. If I had the Paint app, that would be located here as well. And this is what you think of. This is the Kindle app. You would log in using your Amazon password, and then you can read on this device. I will say, though, that I don't particularly recommend using the this device as an e-reader unless you have good lighting, because there's no front lighting on this device. So you really need good lighting in order to take advantage of it as a reader. But if you have that lighting, it's a perfectly functional e-reader. And here we're jumping in. I'm already in this book, and I'll just kind of advance pages by tapping. So anybody that's worked with the Android app for the Kindle will be familiar with the navigation on this device. Okay, so the last thing we're going to take a quick look at is we're just going to look at a document, and we'll look at a PDF document. So we're starting here on the File screen, and as a reminder, the way you can get there is you swipe down here on the right bar, and you can click the File icon, and that takes us there. Let's go ahead and click on the document folder, and here is a PDF file. This is a very large file. It has 308 pages, and it's actually the annual report for e-ink. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And we see an interface very similar to what we saw in Notes, right? We have the table of contents, which we'll click on here, where here, if there was a table of contents in the PDF file, it would be listed here. You can include keywords, you can include bookmarks, annotations, and highlights. So it's a slightly different table of contents option that we saw in the Note-Taking app, but similar in design. We have the same selection of pen styles before, although here we have the addition of the highlighter, which we didn't have before. Here's an icon we saw earlier. This is related to the digest, and this is where we could take sections of this PDF and move it into the digest for future reference. Here we have some of the eraser functions that we're familiar with, the Lasso function. Let's write some text so we can see that in action. Okay, and not as deep as in the note-taking app, but we can certainly copy, cut, or we can create it as a keyword. Here we have undo and redo. And then finger gestures, as we saw before. If we expand the menu, we have the ability to erase all, add bookmarks, search, trim, change the contrast if it's too dark, export the file, quick access, just like we saw with notes. Here under preferences, very similar to what we saw, although there's an additional option related to the digest, which we didn't cover in detail here. But same star marking system, and these are the same options that we saw before. And finally, if we go into the gesture settings, this is pretty much exactly like what we saw with the note-taking app. So no need to go into too much detail there. So what's nice about the documents, it differs slightly from the note-taking app. Not the exact same features, but they are laid out in a very similar manner, so it's easy to not get disorganized. And you can move this around. Let's go ahead and move this over to the side, much like we had with the notes, and we have a similar experience that we're used to with the note-taking app. Okay, so that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and put those into the comments. I try to answer as many questions as I can, as long as I'm capable of answering them. And if I'm not capable, then I usually try to point you in a direction of some place that is. So it's useful to post your comments if you have any questions, and I'm happy to help where I can. In any event, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great day.